All right, let's see. Can you guys hear me? Can you write anything in the chat so that we can verify this? Nice, perfect. I want to make sure that the screen is not on the wrong side. So I'm running a virtual camera here. If everything is good, and you can read the chat and the text and everything else, just point this to me. Would be nice. All right. So, everything's correct. Perfect. So, first things first, maybe some of you guys are wondering what's going on here. This, what you're currently seeing here on the virtual camera, has been created by Bitaxe. He's one of those lovely members here in this community. So, all the credits to him. He created this, he created the intro and this main stage and what's going on here. Like, it's absolutely amazing. He did this, he explained it to me how this functions, and that's how the style of future town halls will be here on this stage. So that's definitely how everything will look like. So again, all the credits to Bitaxe. Thank you for creating this. Thank you for doing this. That's really amazing. All right, I already see that we do have a couple of people joining in here. Lovely to see all of you joining in here. I'm really happy to have you all here. Hey, Scott. Hey there.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Amazing to have you
here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're currently on the plane, or are you still on the airport?
I'm in the airport. My flight leaves in an hour, so we'll see how long I get to hang out with you guys.
All right. Sounds amazing. So we still have some time with you here. That's great.
Dude, thank you so much for putting this together. This is amazing. I was so bummed that I missed the last one, and well, I'm excited to be here this time.
This is definitely this kind of content that I believe is needed for this community to keep up on track what's going on, what's brewing in the future, and it's definitely something that we will do more often.
Great.
All right. So for all the people that are joining in here, if you haven't seen it, take a look on the virtual camera. You will see a new interface that we will have here. This is the new interface for the town hall. So just that you know this. By the way, everything that we do have here is recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you do have any questions, you can always write them into the chat. But if you want to talk to us or have any questions that you want to ask us in person, you can always come over or come on the stage. Just raise your hand and I will put you on the stage, and then we can have a chat, or you can have some questions and I will be happy to answer them. So, all right, so let's go over what are today's topics that I want to go over with you. We do have a couple of topics, and the first topic that I want to go over is the PyX and the QX. For those of you who don't know what this is, I will explain this in a second. But yeah, we'll go to that. The next topic that I want to talk to is a new project that we do see in our wait, Scott, can you mute yourself? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Perfect. So we do have a new project, one of those member projects. So we do have a couple of people here in this community that do some, they do some personal things they want to do. PyX and the QX, those are one of those member projects, and we do have a new one that's called MineApple, and we will get into this as well. We will also talk about the wiki and how the OSMU wiki and like a complete wiki for the Bitaxe and stuff like this, how this will be in the future. Yeah, that's definitely something that I want to talk about. There's also one thing that I will mention today is that I want to quickly dive into the OSMU sniffing session that Scott, Jonathan, and I'm doing on YouTube as well. And the last section that we will cover today is about public pool and what the future of public pool will be, hopefully with some native app implementation. So let's jump into the first topic. Let's jump into the PyX and the QX. Why I'm talking about both in one sentence is pretty simple. Both those things will be implemented and created by a lovely member called PMAXUW. What a name here in Discord, but it is what it is. So he created both of them. The PyX is basically a Bitaxe that is a little bit on steroids when it comes to the size of all those ICs. They're a little bit bigger, and it's a small head that you can put on your Raspberry Pi, and then there's one ASIC chip on it. So that's running pretty lovely, but the news or the things that I want to talk about are those QX changes. So he has implemented their first revision a couple of weeks ago, and he tested them I believe 1 or 2 weeks ago with the first chips, and they were working lovely. He was trying to tweak them a little bit. He achieved good numbers, good results when it comes down to the efficiency. I believe we were sitting at something like 22 to 23 watts per terahash, so that's an amazing number. One of the biggest differences from the QX to an upcoming project that's called the Bitaxe Hex that most of you are probably waiting for is that the QX, as its name states, is running on 4 ASICs instead of 6, what the Hex will be. And he now has created his second revision that is also running. And this one is definitely running good. It's running smooth. He's trying to improve all those things. He's also trying to improve like how those chips are, how could I explain this easily, how they are all communicating with all those stuff. He's not using an ESP on there. Like we all are used to those ESP thingies on the PCB with the Bitaxe, but he's going another route. He is one of those STM users and making an USB connection to another device like a Raspberry Pi. And then he uses a slightly changed Python based miner software to actually interact with the ASICs on them. And he made some good results. I did a small post about this on Twitter about his efficiency gains that he did, and I bet there will be better ones in the future as well. So that's just something I wanted to bring up to you guys' attention so that you know that something is going on, that we do have other projects, not only the Bitaxe that you do see. And this also brings me to like the next topic. But before we dive into this, Scott, do you want to share any of your thoughts, or does anybody in the audience want to come up on stage and share any of your thoughts about this project?
Yes. So I'm super excited about the Piax and the QX. It's really cool to see people putting so much time and effort into like new open source miners. Obviously, I mean that's the whole point of the OSMU, but it's just cool to see it happening. I think I guess I don't even know the author's real name, but he's made quite a bit of progress on this in a short amount of time, which is amazing. One of the things here that is really cool from some other projects that we're working on is because Piax is based on the Raspberry Pi. That means that the firmware that controls the miner runs, like you said, it doesn't run on the ESP32. It runs on the Raspberry Pi. So this isn't the like STM32 version. It's the one that runs on the Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, anyways, that's great. Yeah.
This hasn't really gotten mentioned too much, but they've developed a Python miner firmware, which is amazing. That didn't exist before. That's a really big, important step for the bit cards, which is a project I've been sort of slowly working on. Johnny and I has been working on it too. We have a sort of a test version called the Bit Crane, but the bit cart, just really quickly, is a replacement control board for amplifiers. So, and you have your S19, you can just take out the control board, and the idea is that you can put in the bit cart. But the bit cart is based on a Raspberry Pi. So that means that all this work that's been done for the Piax in the firmware side of things can be very easily sort of run, not even ported, just run on a bit cart Raspberry Pi to, finally get an open source mining firmware and control board for those amplifiers.
Yeah,
that's a long way of saying it.
Yeah, but that's one of the
like
lovely
things.
Is I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just, this project is going to have effects even beyond that project, which is, I think a lot of people that I've talked to are pretty excited about finally getting control over their control boards with open source firmware, and this is made a massive advancement in the functionality there from this project. So
Oh yeah,
Pretty cool.
definitely. One of those things that I do love about this community, like you never know when somebody comes up with a new idea, and maybe you think like, oh, that's cool. I want to use this as well. Maybe I can implement something else with this. So that's one of the biggest like advantages of being here in this community, having all those smart people connected in here. It's really amazing.
Yes, it blows my mind how amazing it is.
B Wolf wrote in the chat, Bitcoin turns any hash board into a Bitaxe. Yeah, that's kind of correct. I mean, it's a different approach of connecting those hash boards, but yeah. Also speaking about this and speaking about how everything works here in this community, I mentioned that we want to talk about the new project MineApple, and I do see that we have Unfolded in the audience. Maybe he's willing to come up to the stage. I try to invite him because he is the one in charge for the project MineApple. It's how can I explain this easily? I'm trying to do my best. Like I'm not super familiar with what he did, but when it comes to visual understanding of what he did, is he basically tried to create some sort of a plug and play USB stick like Bitaxe in a mini format. That's the best I could visually try to explain it. Scott, feel free to correct me if you're a little bit better into this, but yeah, so that's what he did, and the idea is that you don't use like a USB port, as I mentioned here, but some sort of a PCIe port.
That is my understanding. Is it uses the PCIe connector. I guess I could be wrong here, but it doesn't use the PCIe data format. But the idea is that they are modular miners. So on these small cards, where you can just plug as many of them as you want into sort of a backplane, and change your hash rate, change your power usage, and then kind of it looks like they all wrap around a common heat sink. So he's got a cool design going on there with that. Sounds like a great idea. In fact, a lot of people have kind of come up with this idea of like, why don't you make a modular one that we can just kind of expand? And it's like this seems to be the first sort of implementation of that idea. I think it's a fantastic one.
Yeah, I totally do agree with you. Like this idea of having this modular size, like you can imagine like whatever size you want, and it reminds me a little bit back into the days of like having this farms of USB ASICs. Like in the early stages of Bitcoin, this was a funny thing. But even nowadays, there are some of those USB mining farms. I'm not sure if they're profitable, but some of those still exist, like you have from Gecko Signs. And if I'm not mistaken, like Scott, you did had one of those USB miners before, and this I believe this is something that got you also into this thinking of creating something different, right?
Yeah. Gecko Science has been Sidehack is the guy's name who runs it, and he's been doing this for a long time. He's got a bunch of USB miners out there, all based on Antminer chips, like all the way back to I think like the S7 or perhaps even older. And he's got a couple of like pod miners with a higher hash rate. So, he's been doing it for a long time. I always thought that was super cool. It's a good idea. Like I've always said, I think people are hungry for home mining.
I mean, if it hashes, it hashes, right?
Yeah, but I mean, sort of like they're smaller than your typical sort of industrial miners, and I think that's what people are hungry for, is ones that they can practically plug in at their house. And so Gecko Science has been doing it, but of course it's totally closed source, proprietary. They only have one manufacturer and a couple resellers. So there was a big demand, like in the previous sort of mining. I don't know what we even call it, but like when all the miners were super expensive, like several months ago, you couldn't get them, and it was really frustrating. And there's people selling them for hundreds of dollars more than they cost on eBay, and Also, being a hardware guy, I saw it and was like, oh, this is really cool, but I would love to do it this way. But you can't really do anything about it because it's not open source. So I think they're cool. I'm glad to have people out there doing that. But it was definitely motivated me to make an open source version.
It's a good thing that you mentioned it here for all the listeners here that are joining in later or listening to this on YouTube. OSMU is not anything that you will find anywhere near your typical normal community. We are all here only about one thing, and that's open source everything. It's a movement, trust me.
Yes, open source, that's my new line. It's open source is intrinsic to Bitcoin. I have a long spiel about this, but the brief version is that, if Satoshi had not open sourced Bitcoin in the very beginning, then we would not all be here talking about this.
Definitely.
Phenomenal success is in no small part because of its open source nature.
Yeah, and while we're talking about this, so to all the listeners that are also listening to this later on, if you have no idea where you can find all those things, just pay a visit to the website bitaxe.org. There you will find a Discord invitation link, and you can take a look on our Discord here. We do have plenty of chats. We do have everything that we do find out about, I don't know, like ASICs, or how to interact with different kind of PCBs and stuff like this. Everything is on this Discord. Sometimes it will be a little bit hard to find those things, but we do have a search functionality in Discord, so just type anything you're looking for into there and you will probably get any answer. But yeah, so everything is open source. Also, obviously this Mine Apple, this new one that he created, is also open source and available here. I do believe that he does have a GitHub repository. I'm not sure if he has already published it. I bet so, but I don't know the tag for it currently. So that's there. He also has presented some of those lovely pictures. It's so funny how those devices look like. They're literally the same size as those, I don't know, like a mini USB Gecko Science miners, or a little bit smaller, I'd bet. But yeah, I can't wait to see them in action and hashing. So I'd love to see this, and I bet you guys will too. Because like, imagine having a new farm that you can increase of any size you want. That's like amazing. Without any hesitation, you can just plug it in. It hashes, it goes, and that's it. It's just absolutely amazing to have this, and this is also what we do see with other topics that we do have here in this Discord. By the way, guys, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. You can use the chat. This town hall does have a chat functionality, and if you want to ask anything in person, just raise your hand and I will bring you up on stage. All right, is there anything else we want to add to the Mine Apple section? I think we have said about everything that we need to say about it. So then, if you do not see any questions, let's move on with the next topic, the wiki. Some of you guys are probably not aware of this, but we do have a wiki. It's hell of a mess currently. I created it. It's under the GitHub tag bitaxe-doc. You can find this in one of the repos from Scott on his GitHub repository page. It's one of a mess, and it's not really the most beautiful one. But we will move this to a different location. So if you guys just open up your browser and type in osmu.wiki, you will find a new page that is also being created by Duxtape. Credits to him. And we will use this as the new wiki page. We will try to implement basically everything that you can find anywhere on this page. So let's say, for example, you're searching for a specific model number of the Bitaxe Ultra. We do have some different ones. We do have the 201, the 202, 203, all the way up to 205, I believe, currently. And some of those have like different changes. And what we're trying to achieve with this new website is obviously give it a better look than just what you can do with GitHub. And some of you probably say that GitHub is in some ways a little bit better, but I do believe having a wiki page with like search functionality and stuff that you need, like see visually what's going on there, what's the differences between those boards, or how is something working. That's all those functionalities is what we want to implement in this one wiki page, and this is definitely something that you can expect in the course or over the course of this year. There's also this wiki page is been backed by a GitHub repository, and you can always open up a pull request if you want to change anything in there. So feel free. This wiki is also nothing that we want to close or anything else. This is always for the people, from the people. So whenever you do think this is not going fast enough, just open a pull request and push something that you think is needed in this GitHub repository and therefore on this wiki page. Because this is what will make this is what will make it bigger and will make it better understandable for the overall audience that we are trying to achieve with this movement that we do have here. Yeah, that's hell of a monologue, I'm sorry. Scott, you've taken a quick look on the wiki. Well, what's your thought on this?
Well, so, you and I have talked a bunch about this in private, but I think, this is a fantastic idea. Like, we need to have this documentation out there. I get, messages on Twitter and other places, do you guys have any documentation for how to do such and such? And so far my answer has usually been like, no, not really. Like, we don't have that yet. So, this is a fundamental part of any successful open source project, is to have good, clear documentation. So I think, getting this all together, getting it organized, having a place where we can collect it all, and if anyone wants to, if feels inspired to contribute to it, which there have been several people who have indicated maybe they want to do that. This kind of is a repository for all of those things. Like, cool, if you have documentation for, or a how-to or whatever for something, some part of the Bitaxe, this is where we can put it. And of course, having a URL that I can point everyone to is huge. So yes, I'm all in.
Amazing. Yeah. So as you heard, guys, we encourage all of you to just contribute to if you want, obviously. But yeah, definitely one of those bigger community projects that we do have here, like doing all this research, trying to figure out, or even like reverse engineer an ASIC is one thing, but making a documentation about this, completely different one. Believe me, this can take ages. Yeah, so we do have already talked about like 3 different topics. Do we have any questions here, guys? We do see a couple people in the audience. Some of you are jumping in, some of you are hopping off. That's fine. Let's see. What is he writing? I don't know if I'll be able to stay for the whole town hall. Leave a couple of questions, hoping you'll kind of answer later. All right, sure. Go ahead and drop in some questions here. That's awesome. We do have time always to answer those questions. Okay, Butterknuckle says, I'd like to hear more about the public pool addition to Umbrel. I'm not quite sure what this means for me as a node runner. Okay, so this brings us to the last topic that we want to talk today, about today. But yeah, sure, let's answer this. So you may have heard about some posts on Twitter or other stuff that we're trying to push, and all the credits for the public pool here in the audience to Ben. We're trying to push the public pool integration or the public pool software to different node runner operators and node runner manufacturers. Some of you guys are familiar with this Umbrel node or the Run on Citadel software, and what we're trying to do here is we're trying to push this even further to force those, let's say, those software developers into these sections where they need to implement this feature to their nodes, because a lot of people demanding it. A lot of people want to run their own pool. What does this mean? So you asked the question, what does this mean for you as a node runner? So running a node is obviously one of those amazing things. Like we always say, don't trust, verify. Most of the people are not even familiar what this means, but that's another topic. But don't trust verify is one thing. You want to also make sure that you run your own pool. Like if you want to solo mine, you can always do this. You can point your miner to CK pooled or to the public pool that we do have here, created by Ben. We also do have a lot of other like individuals on this Discord here running their own public pool implementation. Decentral, for example, is doing this as well. Zev for privacy is doing this as well. So you could point your miner to whatever of those sort of pools you'd like to point them to, but the highest advantage for yourself would be to run your own pool at your own node. So then you can have your pool at home and you don't need to point your miner outwards of your own network. You just connect it to your own pool. This is connected to your own node. So basically what this means is it's like the glory of everything that you want to have in your home network. You have your node, you have your pool, and you have your miner all sitting in your home network. That's perfect. That's the holy grail when it comes to solo mining. So what does this mean for you as a node runner? It basically puts you all the way up on the top in comparison to all the other people that are trying to solo mine. Yeah, Be Evolved wrote in the chat, it's basically the Apollo 2. That's correct. With one exception, we do everything open source. And I'm not sure, like, most of those nodes that you do see nowadays are implemented either by what's it called, Bitcoin Core or LND, I believe. So those both are obviously open source. So this software is definitely open source. Then you do have a public pool written by Ben that's open source, and then you do have your solo miner that's open source from the hardware perspective and the software perspective. What could be better? I mean, that's literally the holy grail. What do you think, Scott?
Yes, I fully agree. The pure sort of soup to nuts experience, we call it, is to run your own node with your own stratum pool on it, like public pool, and run your own miner. Right? You're not dependent on anyone. You are sovereign, which is, it's kind of amazing that Bitcoin is built so that you can do this. Like, it's totally doable. I think up until now, it's been probably a little bit, well, it's definitely been, it's been way too complicated. There's been things like Umbrel, there's node software, which is easy to get going. Umbrel is probably the easiest node to get going. That's been around for a while. But this kind of missing piece, which is the pool software, or Stratum server, it just hasn't really been there. I know Be Evolved is like, oh, but there's been CK Pool. This is true. You could always get CK Pool and you could run it. I would argue that CK Pool is definitely very performant and nice. It is hard to get going. It also hasn't been updated in a long time. I know that when I tried to do it myself, it was, the code was it was not compatible with the current versions of Bitcoin Core. So I actually had to like modify it just to get it running. So anyways, the idea here is, and why I was excited about Umbrella, was Umbrella is very easy. They make hardware to run your node, or you can run it on a Raspberry Pi. It's like one click install to get up and running of a node. And then they have this app store, which is like, it's basically like the Apple App Store. You just kind of like go through a list of apps and you're like, what do you want to install? And now, hopefully soon, one of them is going to be public pool, meaning you can just one click install public pool, and then you take your Bitaxe or any miner that you want, the S9s in your garage, your Bitaxe, Gecko Science, whatever, and you can point it at your node, which is running public pool, and you can be a self-sovereign miner, which is taking advantage of this wonderful functionality that we have in the Bitcoin ecosystem. Also, I'm actually coming back from Nashville right now, where I was at Bitcoin Park for the mining summit, which was a fantastic event. But John Stephanopoulos was there. He's the founder and engineer at FutureBit, which makes the Apollo 2. So he and I obviously talked a lot. We're both very interested in this topic of home mining. He's been doing it for a long time. He was telling me he's been in the game since like 2013 or something like that. Making USB miners and things. But he has a very, very like mature project that is those Apollos and the new Apollo 2. It's absolutely fantastic, and we are both working in the same general field, but his miner and the Bitaxe are not exactly competitors because he's doing 10 terahash and the thing costs $1,000 and has a node, and so we're not really competitors. But it was cool. It was great to talk to him. The Apollo 2, I think, is what the Evolve is getting at here. Is the Apollo 2 has a Orange Pi, I believe, and it's just like a Raspberry Pi that runs Linux, and it is a node as well. And so it recently actually got Khan Clivius, the inventor of CG Miner and CK Pool. He paid him to make a new version of CK Pool that runs on the Apollo 2, and that is open source. So there's some open source components. It's not open source hardware, but they've got this open source CK Pool that's recently updated that runs on the Apollo 2. That was a long story. Just throw that out there.
Yeah, but you're totally correct about this. This is definitely something that you should be aware of. Like, sure, we're always talking about open source, and some companies also file online or wherever that they do open source stuff. It's kind of funny. I don't want to go too deep into this rabbit hole, but it's the same like with Ledger. They do say, yeah, we open source, while they clearly do not open source everything. So sometimes it's a little bit hard, and I'd say we as the Open Source Miners United community here, we are typically, you could compare us with those Bitcoin maximalists. We are all the way into open source, nothing less than open source everything. And that's probably one of the biggest or the major differences to most of the other projects. As Scott explained, there are a couple of them out there that do run, some of them better, some of them worse. So yeah, it's most of the time it's all right, but yeah, it could be better sometimes. I do see that we have another question from Buck Rogers in the chat. He said he used UNump many years ago, and it was great to be able to switch algos on the fly. Do you use similar types of do-it-yourself setups, pool software that are customizable and easy to implement? So basically, easy to implement, yes, definitely. We do have this public pool. If you do take a look on web.public-pool.io, this is the website that has been run by Ben. It's the open source pool software that he created and he runs. And this is definitely easy or easily switchable to other algorithms if you'd like so, but we will never do so because this project is all the way or always about Bitcoin. So yeah, when it comes down to all those customized features and stuff and what's going on with this public pool software that he wrote, you'd be better to ask him questions about this, because I'm not too deeply into public pool. I do know a bit about it, but not too much, to be fair. Let me read through another question here. Okay, so J3LB4 wrote a couple of minutes ago that he has a Bitaxe and it works only properly with the frequency 400 and voltage 1100. Any other values make it overheat and restart and it stops hashing. And it only provides 350 gigahashes. Is this reasonable? Am I doing something wrong? Second question. Okay, we will go to the second question afterwards. So the first thing that I check, if you do say you have a Bitaxe, I'd love to know if you do have a Bitaxe Max, so one of those older ones that are running the BM1397 chips, or if you do have one of those newer Bitaxes, those ultra ones, how we call them nowadays. They do have a BM1366 chip in it, and they run a little bit smoother and quicker or faster, you can say. The second thing I'd make sure is, and I highly encourage everybody who does purchase a Bitaxe from a third-party manufacturer, check if those guys put on thermal paste. I've seen some Bitaxes without thermal paste. I mean, they do run. It's funny, but it's completely a mess. You should put on thermal paste there, and this definitely will cause overheating if you do not have thermal paste on it. And also this restarting behavior that they do, this is completely normal. If your ASIC chip or the temperature reading chip that we do have on the Bitaxe Ultra and on the BM1397 chip, if those register any Celsius amount above, like, what is it, 70 degrees Celsius, anything above this will cause the ESP to restart. So this behavior is completely normal. But yeah, seeing your Bitaxe with thermal paste and still be overheating, there must be anything wrong on the board. I'm not sure. Like, Scott, do you have any tips on this?
Yeah, I would say in short, something does seem abnormal about your Bitaxe. That's not how they're supposed to work. So something seems like it's malfunctioning. Let's chat about it on the help topic. We've had several people come in and have had some sort of problem, and seems like we usually get them fixed. So yeah, let's talk.
Great. So let's go on. He does have a second question. I want another Bitaxe. I see only stores in EU offering 202s at cheaper prices than the 204. What are the differences between those versions? I think that's your turn. Like,
the short answer is not much. Like, I wouldn't really worry about it. Those are all minor revisions. We incorporated a lot of minor bug fixes. There's no real new functionality. We have this new feature where we can turn off the ASIC as opposed to just ramping the frequency way down, like in cases where it's overheating or something like that. And so that's not available on the 201. But I don't know. It's in my opinion, you'll be fine with a 201 or 202 versus paying more or holding out for a 204. Minor revisions.
Yeah,
and some I was just say some DFM improvements that's designed for manufacturing. So just things that came up in talking with mostly with Ben about what it's like to manufacture these and issues that they ran into and headaches there. And so there's some changes there, but that doesn't affect the end user, except for maybe getting a more reliable Bitaxe.
Yeah, this is definitely something that you can expect. Like, as a user of this Bitaxe, the higher the number is, probably the more reliable it is, because you make revisions because you increased anything at it, like not typically the hash rate or anything else, but you did something that increased the reliability of this device. So that's definitely one of those reasons.
But it's not going to be a massive difference. I guess I maybe wasn't super clear when I said more reliable. Like, this is from a manufacturing point of view, so that all of them get tested before they go out, and so there's several failures from manufacturing that never get shipped. So we're trying to increase the yield, the manufacturing yield. So that's where most of the changes were. But we wouldn't ship or none of the resellers would ship a broken one out to customers. This is just
at least
ones that go in the parts bin. Yes, certainly not on purpose.
Yeah, I bet so. But typically higher revisions mean that something was going on in the background. Like, to say it in easy terms, even if it is just anything that has been on the manufacturer side that has been made better. All right. One thing I want to make sure here as well is, so if you have a Bitaxe and it's running smooth, it's running fine, it never has any downtime, you probably just run it on your own pool that you hopefully have running at home, everything is fine. You are not at an urge to upgrade it or to update it. There is one sentence that is pretty important when it comes to IT. Don't change a running system. This is something that you should keep in mind. Like, if your Bitaxe is running, just let it hash. Like, it is such an enormous amount that it took, like, from the effort perspective to make it function, and sometimes there's not really the need to update. We do see some updates that are really necessary. Like for example, with we had a small bug in the version 205 from the firmware, where like some pools, they do expect a certain behavior when your board or your miner is trying to connect to it. Some pools do have like a certain criteria of when you need to say what, basically. And there was a smaller bug in this, but this has been immediately been reversed and updated to the version 206. So 206 is basically a reverse of one functionality that caused the bug, and that's what I'm talking about. Like even if you do feel the urge to update to anything that seems to be newer, just wait a couple of days. Let other people tell you what they experience with it, and then go for it, or even not. Like if your Bitaxe run, I still do have some Bitaxes on the first revision that still run, and they run fine. I do not have the urge to update them. Why should I?
Just as a counterpoint to that, this is also a project for hackers. So by all means, if you want to screw with it, screw with it. You'll learn a lot, at least.
Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of this Bitaxe device, you cannot really destroy anything, especially like software-wise. You cannot destroy the hardware just by the software, because okay, I mean, probably can, but what I'm talking about, like as you said, like screw with it if you want to, but typically it's just funny to get stress points out of this device. And yeah, one of the biggest things that I need to encourage everybody of you is to just read what's going on. I do had a couple of people that are texting me and asking me, hey, can you repair my Bitaxe, it's broken. And the first question that I always ask them is, what kind of power supply did you put in? And then they come up, I put in a 12-volt power supply. Yep, that's not gonna work. So that's something you can, that's one of those ways, one of those dumb ways to die, I'd probably say, for an ASIC chip, to just use the wrong voltage. But when it comes down to like messing with it, do it. That's what this whole project is about. Just find out if you can find anything new or anything else. That's what we want to see here.
Yeah, and let us know, let everyone know what you come up with and what you find out.
All right. I do see another question that probably is perfect for this example what we're currently talking about. So, in conclusion, we talked about open source, and we do have a question from Krierosats, I believe it's the name. What do you think of Lucky Miners on AliExpress? They appear to be using Bitaxe, but looks like they are hiding it for some reason. Yeah, so that's a funny topic. I personally, and I want to make this sure and clear, this is my personal opinion. I'm a little bit upset about it, to say this in the least meaningful way, because what we're trying to achieve here is to open source everything to make educational purpose documentation for everybody on this globe. And we want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on here and how everything functions. And seeing another company, or a company just for the profit, being out there and trying to make an open source product going backwards into closed source and destroying basically our whole idea of what this is about, that makes me upset. That's all I want to say about it. I don't want to shit talk about them or anything else. That's not my kind of behavior. I just don't like it. If they publish anything, I'd be happy to see what they changed. That's it. My opinion. All right.
Yeah,
I was. Go ahead.
I mean, it's kind of weird. It's like I always expected that this would happen. I've seen it in other electronic projects, open source or not, that there's just straight up clones. So it's definitely expected it to happen. It's kind of one of those weird things, like you never know how you're going to feel about it until it actually happens. And this is the first one, so I guess this is a rite of passage. Like, for the Bitaxe project is seeing this clone. I'm also, not very happy about it, but I think it's inevitable. Um, it, yeah, I guess I have lots of thoughts about it. It's really disappointing because it's an open source project. Like, it's not hard. Like, our licensing terms on the open source uh, hardware design files and the firmware is super permissive. Like, it is not hard at all to comply with the license, and you could make it, and you can sell it, and you can profit on it, and you can change it, and you can do all those things. So it's very easy to do. So it's kind of disappointing that they wouldn't even follow the very easy rules. But
I mean, to
it
be
does happen.
clear here for the people, what are the rules? The rules are pretty simple. You need to use the same license, the GPL license, and we are not liable for anything that's happening. And you can do whatever you want with it. That's it. There's only one thing that you need to do. You need to open source everything you did changed on it. That's all.
Yeah,
that's
it.
all
That's
what
it.
this license asks for. Open source it
All you have to do
and use
is
the same license.
tell us what you changed. Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not that hard. Like, I don't know.
It's not that hard. So I'll just talk about my feelings on the flip side of this.
All right.
Someone else looked at this project and said, this is worth doing. This is worth spending time and money on this project. And so that's validating in a way. Like, we've seen a teardown now of the Lucky Miner PCB and the case and stuff, and it's not bad. It's not a massive change from the Bitaxe, but clearly someone who knew how to lay out PCBs and electrode what they were doing did this. And they saw the Bitaxe project and, decided it was worth pursuing. So that's kind of cool. That's validating, like, to see that others would be interested in it. So it's cool. It's good to see that. I like, there's also that sort of like, what is that line? Like, no such thing as bad publicity, right? Like, they're out there in a sense, like, advertising for Bitaxe, not the way that I would prefer that they did it, but it's kind of out of my hands now. So it's going to make some more people aware of Bitaxe, and that's great. I guess my main worry is that people are going to buy those. They're not going to work right. And so they're going to come back to this community and be upset that their product didn't work right. And if it's a real tire fire of a product, that the support requests could easily overwhelm all of the volunteers here. And I definitely don't want that to happen. So we have to be a little bit cautious of that.
I mean, we do see, like, it's a small company on AliExpress, like, nothing too big for now, but you never know. Maybe we do see like a couple hundred people joining in here and being upset about it. I do hope that this never happens, but I mean, we're trying to do our best to get everybody on the same track and help everybody out, because that's the ethos that we do try to spread here, and that's definitely something that we want to do. So I just hope they never run into any issues.
Yeah, we'll see. There really isn't anything you can do about it.
No,
So,
not really.
talking about it and trying to educate people about, sort of what the difference is, why this is a problem, is helpful. This was sort of the inspiration for starting the Bitaxe Legit list that I recently released, which is just a list of sellers that follow the open source licenses. So if someone,
Can anybody in the chat link this Bitaxe Legit link, please?
Yeah, it's bitaxe.org. If you go there, there's a link to the Bitaxe Legit list. It's in my fantastic HTML design skills.
They are lovely.
But there's a list there. Thank you. It's unchanged since I first learned it, HTML 1.0. But the idea of the list is that these are people that I'm aware of that ship a quality product and follow the license, and basically aren't scams. Because I think a lot of people they don't want to buy a knockoff or a scam, obviously. So this is just if you want to get something legit, like here's the ones. So anyone listening who wants to be on this list, let me know. Like, I have on the list on the page, I have just kind of the rules for what it takes to be on the list. So if you want to be on there, just let me know.
I mean, the rules aren't that hard, right?
No, they're not that hard. They're not that hard at all. Just publish your changes, basically, is what I'm getting at, and don't be a scammer.
Yeah, it's true. Some people of you might be wondering why one or the other manufacturer is not on this list. Just read through the rules. They're pretty simple. One thing that I do not understand is, I think there was a small topic about this, but publishing or trying to pre-order stuff that never has been implemented.
Yes.
I'm not sure what your feelings about this.
So this was kind of a new rule that came up in some discussions with some members on here, and it is just trying to have some clarity around what's going on, what product you're selling, and not upset your customers. So the rule is that you can't resell OSMU devices, which some manufacturers are doing, and then this is a little bit tough because some of the people doing this I know they're reputable, like they have been reputable sellers. But what I don't want to have happen is now there's a bunch of pre-sales out there for unreleased stuff, and then there becomes a lot of pressure on all of us volunteers who are actually building it to like get it done, like because people have bought it, like, where is it? We want this thing now. Like, you scammed us, you never did it, right? And it's like, we don't have, like, we're not a company with paid employees. We don't have a timeline. We don't have investors. We it'll be ready when it's ready, and the specs of it will be what we can figure out and what we can do. So I don't want to have anyone like creating false hope or anything like that by doing pre-sales. So this is my attempt to gently convince those folks to not do that.
And I think that's one of the best attempts to do so, to point them into the right direction. Before we go ahead, how much time do you have left?
A couple minutes.
All right.
My boarding group is next, but I just want to say, selling pre-released OSMU products is fine. You can do that on this chat room or other places privately, but it's the retail sort of pre-order sales that kind of bug me.
I mean, totally understandable, my opinion. All right. So, okay, you will have a couple of minutes left, so I want to go over to the last two topics, and I wish you a good flight as soon as you need to board. So,
thank you. I'm not in the first group, so we got a little bit.
You're not rich now?
Not yet. Soon, right?
When moon, huh? Yeah.
Yes. I'm in group 6. How does that even happen?
Oh, it's getting cold there, right?
Yeah.
All right, so
hopefully it's on the plane.
There's one thing that I haven't really talked about when it comes to the public pools section, or the whole topic about public pools. So we talked about that we are trying to get those manufacturers and those software developers into this kind of forcing state where they need to run public pool because it has been on a high demand side from all the customers. So what I was trying to express with this is public pool has seen a couple of pull requests to software like as Umbrella, as Scott stated. So you hopefully, that's what I'm hoping, that's personal opinion here again, you hopefully can expect the public pool software as a one-click installation on the Umbrella software. Hopefully this year. I have no idea like when they will try to implement it. A pull request has been opened, so someone was been able to implement this into their software, and now it needs to be official. So that's the thing we're waiting for, and this is also happening with other software from other node operators or node manufacturers as well. for the run on Citadel. This one you can also expect this. I do know that they're working on this on this implementation, and this is definitely something that brings us a huge step forward into the right direction of getting the people into the state of like how things are working. Like you don't really need to be an expert if you have software that can easily be on a press of a button your gateway to the internet, to the Bitcoin internet, to like running your node, running your pool, running your own mempool.space. Like that's one thing I do regularly. Like when I wake up, I go on the PC and I take a look. How's the block time? What's going on? What are the transaction fees? What's today on the topic? Like for me, that's one of my first things that I do each day. And to have this under the fingertip, one click away, that's amazing. And I do need to say that sometimes I'm not sure what to feel about running this on software that is not as open source as everything else in here, but I'm fine with it. At least they try to implement it. I think that's a good step into the right direction. All right, so we only have one topic left for today, and it's said that you are going to board very soon, Scott, because I want to talk about the OSMU sniffing session that you, Jonathan, and I are having on YouTube. So,
oh man, that was really fun.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. So for other people who are listening currently and don't know what we are talking about, so Scott, Jonathan, and I, we came up with the idea of doing a live stream session of sniffing into all those different hashboards, those different antminers. So Jonathan is the CEO of Decentral, if you don't know, and he does have a ton of different ASIC miners. And it's lovely to have him here on this community as well, because he is willing to spend some time with us sniffing through those boards, like trying to understand what's going on a serial connection between those different boards. Like when you think about it, we do have a ESP on the PCB, and this is communicating with the ASIC chip. When it comes to those bigger ones, like those Antminer S9 or whatever numbers increasing there, those ones are way bigger. They do have multiple rows of chips, sometimes even with like 10 or 15 chips on one row. That's pretty insane. And they do this a little bit differently. They do have a control board and then the hash board. So they separate the brain from the actual legs, I'd say. Like if you imagine those ASICs are the legs for the miner. And they are trying to separate them, and what we are trying to do is we're trying to sniff right into the middle of the connection, like we are ripping off the isolation from the cable, and we're trying to see what kind of signals are going over there, what kind of message is sent to the ASIC chips, and what do they respond. And this gives us some insight into how we can expect what happens when we do a certain task. Is there a different way how you would explain this, Scott?
I don't know if you guys can hear me. I'm like on the jetway now, but yes, no, that's exactly right. We're just experimenting. We're poking around. We're trying to see how these things work, and I don't know. It's kind of fun to do that in a more social setting as opposed to all alone. Like much faster learning and more exciting. And of course, recording it so that anyone else who is interested in going down this route can, watch the trials and tribulations.
Definitely something interesting, and I definitely appreciated that we do have the option there. Also, for all the people who are not aware, all the things that we do capture in those sniffing sessions that we do there are available in this Discord as well. We do make some files. We do have some tools there to actually capture what kind of serial connection is going on, and those files will be downloaded and then uploaded to this Discord server here as well. So you as a listener here do have always the option to just opt in later whenever you do have time and just open up this file in a specific program that you need, but this one is free, I believe. And analyze just what's going on, and maybe you do understand something in a different way or in a better way than we do, and then you can contribute to the overall project. Would be awesome. So I think, like, if you do not see any new questions, that we do have talked about all the topics for today's town hall. We are currently in 1 hour and 5 minutes, so that's perfect. If you do have any questions, or if you want to come onto the stage, greet your mom, I don't know, just do so. Like, it's always lovely to see new people in here, and having you there asking questions. We are always here to help you and to give you a better understanding of what's going on. And this town hall will be again here in 2 weeks. I might be doing this a little bit later. I do have a couple of people that are telling me that it is a little bit too early, so I might do this 1 or 2 hours later in the future. I'm not sure, but you will be posted about this definitely, and I will make it that you do know when this will happen. So if you do not see any questions here, I want to close this with one last sentence to all our German viewers out here. That's something that was actually done today. Yeah, I had a call today. So by the mid of next month, on the 18th of February, I hope that I'm correct. It's a Sunday, I believe. Let me take a look on the calendar. Yeah, it's the 18th of February. I'll do the first Bitaxe workshop in Germany, and this will be in Darmstadt. It's a city in like the west south, you can say, or probably more to the west. I will be there. On my website will be shortly a new link, and then you can live solder a Bitaxe with me there. So that's just a quick sentence to all those German people out here. If you want to join in there, just be aware, I will post about this very soon. I don't have anything else to say today. I thank you all for joining in here. I thank everybody of being here. I thank you, Scott, for being on the stage. Props out to Duct Tape for creating this awesome background, this awesome intro. Thank you very much for this. That's it for today's session, and see you next week, in 2 weeks, I'm sorry.